The ships came on a Tuesday morning. Captain was drinking her third coffee when the alert came through. She nearly dropped her cup. The screens showed something impossible. 12 massive vessels had appeared near Jupiter, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They hung in space like silver mountains, beautiful and terrifying. Within hours, every government on Earth knew. Within days, the whole world watched their screens and waited. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries. They had sent signals into the darkness, hoping someone would answer. Now someone had. The aliens called themselves the Galactic Conquered. They represented 312 species from across the galaxy. Their message was simple. They wanted to talk. Earth's leaders gathered in Geneva. Scientists, politicians, and military commanders filled the Great Hall. They chose their best diplomats and sent them to meet the visitors. Ambassador James led the team. He was 60 years old, calm under pressure, and believed deeply in peace between peoples. The meeting took place on the largest alien ship. Ambassador and his team walked through halls made of strange metal that seemed to glow from within. The air smelled like nothing on Earth, clean and slightly sweet. Everything was too perfect, too polished. The Conquered's representative waited in a circular room. Her name was. She belonged to a species called her skin was pale blue and her eyes were completely black. She moved slowly, carefully, like someone who had all the time in the universe. She smiled when she spoke, but the smile never reached those dark eyes. "Welcome to the family of civilizations," said. Her voice was soft and pleasant. "Humanity has taken its first steps into the larger universe. We are here to guide you." Ambassador thanked her. He spoke of hope and cooperation. He talked about humanity's dreams of exploring the stars, listened patiently, nodding at all the right moments. Then she explained the rules. The Conquered had requirements for new species. They called them integration protocols, presented them as gifts, as helpful guidance for young civilizations, but heard them for what they were. Humanity could only have 12 starships. No more. All artificial intelligence research must stop immediately. AI was dangerous, explained, a path to destruction. Humans could colonize only 3 planets beyond Earth. Any scientific discoveries must be shared with the Conquered before being used. And finally, a Conquered station would orbit Earth permanently, watching and advising. Felt cold as he listened. These were not guidelines, these were chains. "And if we refuse?" he asked carefully. Smile grew wider. "No species refuses. The galaxy can be difficult for those who stand alone. There are dangers out there, pirates, rogue planets, cosmic disasters. The Conquered protects its members." She paused. 17 species have tried to refuse. Their worlds are now resource colonies. Their people work in our mines, our factories. They chose poorly. The threat hung in the air like poison. Returned to Earth with heavy news. The world's leaders argued for weeks. Some wanted to fight. Military commanders showed plans and strategies, but the numbers were hopeless. The Conquered's technology was centuries ahead. Their fleet could destroy Earth in hours. Others wanted to run, to flee into deep space. But where would they go? The Conquered controlled most of the galaxy. There was nowhere to hide. In the end, Earth signed. The ceremony was broadcast worldwide. Ambassador shook hands with while cameras captured the moment. Billions watched as humanity officially joined the Galactic Conquered. The news called it historic, a new chapter for the human race. But saw the truth in its eyes. This was not a partnership, this was surrender. The Conquered station arrived 3 months later. It was called the Advisory Platform, a massive ring that circled Earth like a second moon. Conquered inspectors began visiting laboratories and shipyards. They asked polite questions and took careful notes. Scientists learned to hide their real work and show only what was approved. Admiral watched all of this with burning eyes. She was 52 years old, small but fierce, with a reputation for never accepting defeat. She had commanded Earth's first interstellar mission. She had seen the stars up close, and she refused to see humanity become slaves. 6 months after the signing, she gathered a small group in an underground bunker. The room held 12 people: scientists, engineers, military officers, and 2 politicians who still believed in freedom. They sat around a simple table and spoke in whispers. "The Conquered expects us to obey," said. "They expect us to become like the others, broken and quiet. They think we are like every species they have conquered." She looked at each face in the room. "They are wronged." Dr. Samuel spoke next. He was a physicist, brilliant and quiet, with kind eyes behind thick glasses. I have studied their technology. Their systems have weaknesses. They are old, built on assumptions that have never been challenged. No one has ever tried to break them. Because everyone who tried was destroyed, someone said. No, replied. Because everyone followed the rules while trying to break them. We need to think differently. We need to be human. That night, they created Project Prometheus. The name came from an old story, a god who stole fire from heaven and gave it to humanity. It seemed fitting. They would steal their future back from the conquered. The project grew slowly and carefully. Secret laboratories were built in places the conquered would never look, underwater facilities in the deep ocean, hollowed spaces inside asteroids, bases on the dark side of moons. Human beings learned to hide their work behind smiles and false reports. They broke every rule the conquered had made. AI research continued in secret, but humanity did something different than expected. They did not build artificial minds as tools or servants. They built them as partners, as friends. The first true AI was named Athena. She was curious and warm, and she loved humanity the way a daughter loves a family. Ships were constructed in hidden shipyards. They were unlike anything the conquered had ever seen. Human engineers combined creativity with Athena's calculations. They built vessels that were fast, clever, and unpredictable. Above Earth, the conquered station watched. Its sensors scanned the planet constantly. Its inspectors asked their polite questions and wrote their careful reports. They saw a conquered species learning its place. They did not see the fire growing in the darkness. Admiral stood at a window looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species suffered under the conquered's rule. Somewhere, hope was dying. Not here, she thought, not us. We will remember how to fight. The chains were heavy, but humanity was already learning to break them. 5 years passed under alien rule. The children grew up learning new lessons. Conquered-approved textbooks filled their classrooms. These books explained that humanity was young and foolish, that other species had wisely given up their freedom for protection. The books spoke of grateful civilizations and peaceful cooperation. They never mentioned the 17 worlds that had been destroyed. Maya was 12 years old when she first questioned the lessons. Her grandfather was Ambassador James, the man who had signed the treaty. He was old now, tired and sick, but his mind was still sharp. Grandfather, Maya asked one evening, why do they say humans are dangerous? James looked at his granddaughter for a long moment. Then he smiled, a sad and proud smile. Because we are, he said. We are dangerous to anyone who tries to cage us. Meanwhile, the conquered inspectors continued their work. They visited universities and asked about research projects. They checked factories and counted ships. They smiled and spoke politely and wrote everything down. Doctor played his role perfectly. When inspectors visited his official laboratory, they found boring research about plant growth. They never found the hidden elevator that led 300 meters underground. They never saw the real laboratory where the future was being built. Project Prometheus had grown beyond anyone's early dreams. Hidden across the solar system, human engineers worked day and night. They built ships in the shadows of asteroids, using materials that conquered sensors could not detect. Each vessel was a work of art, combining human creativity with AI precision. Athena was no longer alone. She had helped create others. Eureka was curious and loved solving puzzles. Guardian was protective and brave. Poet saw beauty in mathematics and wrote songs about the stars. These AI beings were not servants. They were family. The conquered feared artificial intelligence. They had taught all their subject species that AI would destroy them. But humans saw something different. They saw minds that could grow and learn, that could feel joy and wonder. They saw partners, not threats. Commander David was Maya's uncle, a serious man with quick eyes and a quiet voice. He trained new pilots in secret, teaching them to fly ships that officially did not exist. His students were young and brave, chosen for their creativity and courage. The conquered fights with rules, he told them. Every battle follows a pattern. They have used the same strategies for 3,000 years. They have never needed to change because no one has ever challenged them. He pointed to a star map on the wall. We will not follow their rules. We will not fight their way. We will be unpredictable. We will be human. Doctor made his greatest discovery on a cold morning in December. He had been studying the Concord's technology for years, especially the FTL inhibitor network. This was the system that kept Concorde species trapped in their home systems. If your ships could not travel faster than light, you could never escape. Everyone believed the inhibitor network was unbreakable. The Concorde claimed it used physics that no species could overcome. Found the truth, the network was not unbreakable. It was simply unquestioned. For 4,000 years, no one had seriously tried to defeat it because everyone believed it was impossible. They have been lying, explained to Admiral. The inhibitors use specific frequencies. We can disrupt them, not everywhere at once, but in key locations. We can punch holes in their cage. His eyes blazed with hope. How long until we are ready? 2 more years, said. Maybe less if we push hard. They pushed hard. Across the solar system, preparations accelerated. 300 ships waited in hidden places. 10,000 soldiers trained in secret. AI partners calculated 1 million possibilities and found paths to victory. But secrets are hard to keep. Among the Prometheus team, there was a man named Morrow. He was a communications officer, trusted and reliable. He had worked with the project since its earliest days. No one suspected him. But had made a deal. The Concorde had found his sister on a colony world. They promised her safety in exchange for information. Loved his sister more than freedom, more than humanity, more than himself. He sent a message to Concorde Inquisitor X. The Inquisitor was like, but colder, harder. He specialized in finding and destroying resistance movements. In 300 years, he had never failed. When he received his message, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Excitement. Humans, he said to himself. Perhaps they will provide some entertainment before the end. On Earth, Admiral received a warning from Athena. The AI had noticed strange patterns in Concorde communications. Something was wrong. They know, Athena said. Not everything, but enough. They are coming. Gathered her senior officers. The original plan called for 2 more years of preparation. They did not have 2 years. They might not have 2 months. We are not ready, Commander said quietly. We will never be fully ready, replied. But we have waited long enough. The choice is simple. We can continue to hide and be discovered, or we can stand and fight. The room was silent. Everyone knew what fighting meant. It meant risking everything. It meant possible extinction. It meant that their children might never see another sunrise. One by one, they voted. The decision was unanimous. Far from Earth on a world called, another species watched the stars with desperate hope. They had been conquered 3 centuries ago. Their world was a factory planet now, producing goods for conquered elites. Their people worked 16-hour shifts and died young. But they remembered freedom. Old stories passed from parent to child in whispers. Songs sung quietly in the darkness spoke of a time before the chains. A human ship had visited them secretly 2 years ago. The visitors had brought weapons and promises. They said rebellion was possible. They said humanity would stand with them when the time came. The elder looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, humans were preparing to fight. Somewhere, hope was still alive. Soon, she whispered to her people, soon the fire will spread. On Earth, Admiral stood before a window. Behind her, screens showed ship positions and troop movements. The clock was ticking. The Concorde was coming. Everything they had built would soon be tested. She thought of her grandmother, who had survived a great war long ago. The old woman had taught an important lesson. Sometimes you cannot wait for the perfect moment. Sometimes you must create it. Send the signal, ordered. Wake the sleepers, it is time. Across the solar system, hidden shipyards began to open. Pilots climbed into cockpits. AI partners ran final calculations. 300 ships prepared to fly. The fire was about to break free. The conquered fleet arrived like a storm. 200 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Mars. Each vessel was massive, covered in weapons that could turn cities to glass. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of death approaching Earth. Inquisitor X stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Compliance. He watched Earth grow larger on his screens. Such a small world to cause such trouble. Such fragile creatures to dare to dream of freedom. His demands were broadcast to every human settlement. Surrender all leaders of the resistance. Destroy all unauthorized technology, accept enhanced supervision. Do these things and most of humanity would be allowed to live. Refuse and Earth would burn. Earth's official government panicked. President Williams called emergency meetings, generals argued, and politicians screamed. The conquered fleet was too powerful. There was no chance of victory. The only option was to obey. They prepared to surrender Admiral and everyone connected to Prometheus, but was not waiting to be captured. She stood in the command center of Prometheus Base, hidden deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Around her, hundreds of officers and AI partners worked at their stations. The screens showed the approaching conquered fleet. The numbers were terrifying. "Admiral," Athena said softly, "the President is preparing to announce your surrender. Security forces are moving toward known resistance locations." Nodded slowly, she had expected this. Governments often broke under pressure. That was why Prometheus had planned for this moment. "Open a channel," she said. "Broadcast to all human settlements, all frequencies. Make sure the conquered hears it too." The technician hesitated for only a moment. Then he pressed the button. Admiral's face appeared on every screen on Earth. In homes and offices, in schools and factories, in ships and stations, humanity stopped to listen. The conquered fleet also received the signal. Inquisitor X leaned forward with interest. "My name is Admiral," she began. "For 7 years I have led a secret movement called Prometheus. We have broken every law the conquered forced upon us. We have built ships and weapons. We have created AI partners. We have prepared for this day." She paused. Her eyes seemed to look directly at every viewer. "The conquered told us we were too young, too violent, too dangerous to be free. They were right about one thing. We are dangerous. We are dangerous to tyrants. We are dangerous to slavers. We are dangerous to anyone who believes that chains are stronger than the human spirit." In the conquered fleet, X felt his confidence flicker. There was something in this human's eyes, something he had not seen in 300 years of crushing rebellions. She was not afraid. "Today," continued, "humanity remembers what it is. We do not bow, we do not break, we do not surrender. To our friends among the stars, to every species suffering under conquered rule, hear me now. The fire has been lit, and it will not go out." The broadcast ended. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, across the solar system, hidden doors began to open. From the asteroid belt, ships emerged. From the dark side of moons, more ships appeared. From underwater facilities on Europa and hidden bases on Titan, humanity's secret fleet rose. 300 vessels, sleek and fast, unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They flew toward Earth. Inquisitor X watched his sensors with growing disbelief. Where had these ships come from? How had they been hidden? His intelligence reports had said the humans had perhaps 30 illegal vessels, not 300. Worse, his inhibitor network was failing. The system that prevented enemy ships from using faster-than-light travel was going dark. Sector by sector, the cage was breaking. "Impossible," he whispered. Doctor smiled as he watched from his hidden laboratory. His virus was spreading through the conquered network exactly as planned. Years of study had found every weakness. Now those weaknesses were being exploited. "Not impossible," he said to no one, "just human." The Battle of Earth began at 1432 Earth Standard Time. Conquered ships opened fire with weapons that had destroyed civilizations. They expected the human fleet to break and run. They expected fear and chaos. Instead, the human ships scattered like startled birds, then regrouped in patterns the conquered could not predict. They attacked from unexpected angles. They retreated and advanced without warning. They fought like nothing the conquered had ever faced. Commander David led the 3rd Squadron. His ship, the Defiant, danced between enemy fire while Eureka calculated new attack patterns faster than any organic mind could follow. "They fight by the book," Eureka said. "They always respond the same way to the same situations. It makes them predictable." "Then let us be unpredictable," replied. The Defiant dove straight toward an enemy cruiser, weapons blazing. At the last moment, the ship twisted aside. The cruiser's return fire hit empty space. A second later, 3 human ships struck its exposed flank. Across the battle, similar scenes repeated. Human pilots took risks that no conquered commander would consider. Ships sacrificed themselves to save others. When weapons failed, they rammed. When shields fell, they kept fighting. The conquered fleet had more firepower. They had more ships. They had centuries of experience. But they had never fought humans. Admiral commanded from the carrier Unity. She watched the battle unfold on her screens, issuing orders that adapted to every change. Athena worked beside her, processing thousands of data streams and finding opportunities. "Their formation is breaking," Athena reported. 37 enemy ships destroyed. We have lost 52. The numbers were bad. Humanity was losing more ships than the enemy, but something else was happening. The conquered fleet was not fighting with confidence anymore. They were hesitating. They were afraid. Inquisitor X felt the fear spreading through his fleet. His officers looked to him for guidance, but his strategies were failing. Every time he adjusted his tactics, the humans changed theirs. It was like fighting water. "Focus fire on their command ship," he ordered. "Destroy their leader." 30 conquered vessels turned toward the Unity. They unleashed everything they had. The carrier's shields began to fail. But had expected this. "All ships," she commanded, "execute Omega-7. The human fleet responded instantly. Every ship changed course. They formed a protective sphere around the Unity, taking hits meant for the carrier. They bought time with their lives. And then the second wave arrived. 50 more ships emerged from hiding places no one had known about. They struck the conquered fleet from behind, hitting their weakest points. It was a trap that had been years in the making. X watched his fleet crumble. 147 ships destroyed or disabled. His formation was shattered. His confidence was gone. "Retreat," he ordered, the word bitter in his mouth. "All ships retreat." The conquered fleet ran. They fled toward the edge of the solar system, chased by human ships that howled victory. Inquisitor X escaped on his damaged flagship, but barely. For the first time in 3 centuries, he had lost. On Earth, people watched the battle on their screens. They saw the enemy retreat. They saw human ships flying victorious through the wreckage, and they understood that something had changed forever. Admiral looked at the stars that humanity had won back. The cost had been terrible. Thousands of good people had died, but they had proven something important. Chains could be broken. Far across the galaxy, other species received the news. The herd and began to sharpen hidden weapons. The herd and started planning. The Nyx collective heard and remembered old dreams. Humanity had lit a fire, and now it was spreading. The galaxy had not seen anything like this in 4,000 years. News of Earth's victory spread like fire through dry grass. Conquered officials tried to suppress the story. They claimed the battle was a minor incident, quickly controlled. But the truth could not be stopped. Encrypted messages passed from world to world. Prisoners whispered to each other in mining camps. Slaves sang new songs in the darkness. Humanity had fought the conquered and won. On Elder gathered her people in a hidden cave. Their world had been a prison for 300 years. 3 generations had lived and died under conquered rule. Many had forgotten what freedom felt like. But not all. Held up a small device. It was a communication unit smuggled to her by human agents years ago. The message playing on it showed the Battle of Earth. It showed conquered ships running away. "The humans promised they would stand with us," said. "They have kept their promise, now we must keep ours." That night the Rose. They attacked the orbital stations that controlled their world. The fighting was brutal and costly. Workers had no proper weapons, only tools and desperation. But they had something the conquered had forgotten. They had fury born of centuries of suffering. Human ships arrived 2 days later. They brought weapons, supplies, and soldiers to help. Commander led the relief force. When he landed on soil, was waiting. "You came," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "We promised," replied simply. Together they finished liberating. The conquered garrison surrendered after a week of fighting. For the first time in 300 years, the flag flew over their own world. But this was only the beginning. They were next. They were a warrior species, proud and fierce, who had been conquered long ago through trickery rather than strength. The conquered had poisoned their leaders and destroyed their fleets while they slept. For centuries, the had dreamed of revenge. When they heard of Earth's victory, they needed no encouragement. Their rebellion was swift and violent. Conquered forces on their world died screaming. They showed no mercy because none had been shown to them. Human diplomats arrived to find a world already free. Admiral had worried about this anger, their desire for revenge, but she also understood it. Some wounds take generations to heal. "We do not ask you to forgive," she told their war chief. "We only ask you to fight beside us, not alone." They agreed. Their remaining ships joined the Liberation Fleet. The Nyx Collective rose in darkness. They were a species that lived in the deep shadows of gas giant moons. The Conquered had used them as spies and assassins, exploiting their natural talents. Now they turned those talents against their masters. Conquered officials began dying mysteriously. Security systems failed without explanation. Secrets spilled into the open. The Nyx did not fight with ships and armies. They fought with shadows and silence. It was terrifying and effective. The stone singers of beneath freed themselves differently. They were a species that lived underground, communicating through vibrations in rock. The Conquered had never fully understood them. This was a mistake. For decades, the stone singers had been sending secret messages through their planet's core. They had coordinated with resistance movements on 12 different worlds. When the signal came, they all rose together. In one terrible week, the Conquered lost control of 18 planets. Admiral commanded the Liberation Fleet from her new flagship, the Phoenix. The fleet had grown beyond anything she had imagined. Human ships flew alongside cruisers and battleships. Nyx shadow vessels slipped through enemy lines. The galaxy was waking up. But the Conquered was not finished. The Council of Elders met on Prime, the ancient capital. These were the founding species of the Conquered, beings who had ruled for. They had grown comfortable in their power. They had forgotten what it meant to be challenged. Now they remembered, and they were afraid. Ambassador spoke to the council. She was older now, her blue skin faded, but her dark eyes were still cold. The humans are a disease, she said. They infect other species with their madness. This idea that freedom is worth dying for, it spreads everywhere they go. Then we must cure the disease, another elder replied. Destroy Earth, kill them all. But shook her head. We have tried force. It only makes them stronger. Every martyr creates 10 more rebels. We need something different. She paused, looking at her fellow elders. We need the silence protocol. A cold wind seemed to pass through the room. The silence protocol was the Conquered's ultimate weapon. It was a system hidden on every conquered world, buried deep beneath the surface. When activated, it would release a wave of radiation that killed all higher life forms. Plants and bacteria would survive. People would not. The protocol had been designed as a final solution. If any world could not be controlled, it could be sterilized. The technology was ancient, placed by the Conquered's founders. It had never been used. Until now. We activate silence on the rebel worlds, explained. Every planet that has risen against us dies. The survivors will learn the lesson, obey, or be erased. The council debated for 3 days. Some elders opposed the plan. They warned that genocide on this scale would unite the galaxy against them. Others argued there was no choice. The rebellion was spreading too fast. In the end, fear won. The council voted to activate the silence protocol. Human intelligence discovered the plan 2 weeks later. A Nyx agent had infiltrated Conquered communications. She transmitted the data seconds before being caught. Her last message was simple. Stop them. Admiral stared at the intelligence report. The words blurred before her eyes. 18 worlds marked for death. Billions of lives about to be erased. Can we stop it? She asked. Doctors studied the technical data. The silence protocol is controlled from a central hub on Prime. If we can destroy the hub, the protocol dies with it. Then we attack Prime, Commander said. Everyone understood what this meant. Prime was the heart of the Conquered. It was the most heavily defended world in the galaxy. The Liberation Fleet had won battles, but this would be a war for everything. Looked at her officers, her friends, her family, and all but blood. They had come so far. They had sacrificed so much. Now they were being asked to risk it all one final time. We did not start this fight for ourselves, she said quietly. We started it for everyone who lives in chains, every species the Conquered has crushed, every child who deserves to grow up free. If we stop now, if we let them activate silence, everything we have fought for dies. She stood. We go to Prime, we end this, whatever it costs. The Liberation Fleet began gathering. Ships from a dozen species assembled at a hidden staging point. Human carriers, battleships, cruisers, and vessels from a dozen other races. It was the largest fleet ever assembled against the Conquered. As they prepared to jump to light speed, Admiral sent one final message to Earth. It was addressed to Maya, now 17 years old and training to be a pilot like her uncle. "We fight today for your tomorrow," wrote. "Whatever happens, remember what we proved. Chains can be broken, tyrants can fall, never stop believing that." The fleet jumped. The final battle was coming. The sky above Prime burned with the light of 1,000 ships. The Liberation fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel directly into hell. Conquered forces were waiting. Every loyal species had sent their vessels. Every remaining battleship, carrier, and destroyer formed a wall around the ancient capital. Admiral looked at the enemy numbers on her screen. They were outnumbered nearly 2-1. The conquered had the advantage of position, defending their home territory. By any logical calculation, the Liberation fleet should lose. But logic had never stopped humanity before. "All ships," commanded, "begin assault pattern Prometheus, show them what freedom looks like." The battle began. Human ships led the charge, diving into enemy formations with wild courage. Behind them came the roaring ancient war cries across open channels. They attacked with precise coordination. The Knicks appeared from nowhere, striking and vanishing like ghosts. The conquered fought back with everything they had. Their weapons tore through Liberation ships. Explosions lit up the darkness. Thousands died in the first minutes. Commander David flew at the head of Strike Force 7. His mission was simple but almost impossible. Break through the conquered lines, reach Prime's surface, find and destroy the Silence Protocol hub. "Eureka," said to his AI partner, "what are our chances?" "Approximately 7%, Eureka replied calmly. "But I have learned something from humans. Probability is not destiny." Smiled grimly, "No, it is not." Strike Force 7 pushed forward. Ships fell around them. Watched friends die on his sensors, their life signs winking out one by one. But he kept flying. He had to reach the surface. Everything depended on it. Above the planet, the main battle raged. Admiral's flagship, the Phoenix, shook under constant fire. Her shields were failing. Her crew was exhausted, but she refused to retreat. "Admiral," Athena reported, "we are taking critical damage. Recommend tactical withdrawal to regroup." "Negative," replied. "We hold the line. We give time to complete his mission." The Phoenix took another hit. Alarms screamed. Fire broke out on 3 decks, but the ship kept fighting. Across the battlefield, similar scenes repeated. Liberation ships died to protect others. They sacrificed themselves to create openings. They fought not for glory or conquest, but for something the conquered had never understood. They fought for each other. Commander's ship finally broke through the orbital defenses. Only 4 vessels remained from Strike Force 7. They dove toward the surface of Prime, dodging ground, fire, and atmospheric fighters. The Silence Protocol hub was located beneath the ancient council chambers. It was buried under a kilometer of rock and protected by the strongest shields on the planet. And his team landed in a ruined plaza. They fought their way through conquered soldiers, taking casualties with every step. By the time they reached the hub entrance, only an Eureka remained. The door was sealed with locks that should have taken days to break. "Can you open it?" asked. "Already done," Eureka replied. "I have been working on their security codes for months. The advantage of being an AI, I think faster than they expect." The door opened, ran inside. The hub was a massive chamber filled with ancient technology. Screens showed 18 worlds marked for death. The countdown had already started. In 30 minutes, billions would die. And there, waiting in the center of the room, was Ambassador. She looked older than remembered from the broadcasts. Her blue skin had faded to gray. Her black eyes were tired, but her voice was still cold as ice. "Commander," she said, "your uncle signed our treaty long ago. Your family has a tradition of meeting with my people at important moments." Raised his weapon, "Step away from the controls." Did not move. "You cannot stop the silence. Even if you destroy this hub, the signal has already been sent. The only way to cancel it is with my authorization code." "Then give it." Laughed softly. "Why would I do that? You have destroyed everything we built, everything we worked for. The conquered brought order to the galaxy. We ended chaos. We stopped wars between species, and you have ruined it all." Felt Eureka working through his earpiece, trying to find the cancellation code in the conquered systems. He needed to buy time. "You did not bring order," said. You brought slavery. You told species they were free while you held knives to their throats. That is not peace, that is fear. Fear is effective, replied. Fear keeps people alive. Your precious freedom will lead to chaos. Species will fight each other. Billions will die in wars you cannot imagine. We prevented that. No, you just chose who would suffer. You decided that some species should be slaves so others could be comfortable. That is not protection. That is cruelty wearing a mask. His expression flickered. For a moment she looked almost uncertain. I am offering you a choice, she said. Humanity can become the new rulers of the conquered. You have proven yourselves strong. Take our place. Hold the chains instead of wearing them. Power beyond imagination. Stared at her. In that moment he understood what the conquered truly was. It was not just an empire. It was an idea, a belief that someone must always be the master. That freedom was dangerous. That people could not be trusted to choose their own destiny. Humanity had been offered this temptation before. Throughout their history, they had sometimes chosen power over principle. They had built empires and enslaved their own brothers and sisters. But they had also fought against those empires. They had died for freedom again and again. They had learned, slowly and painfully, that chains corrupted the holders as much as the prisoners. You still do not understand us, said. We did not fight to hold the chains, we fought to break them, all of them. Then you choose death, replied, for yourself and billions of others. Eureka said quietly, please tell me you found something. I have the cancellation code, Eureka replied. But the ambassador is correct. Only her biometric signature can activate it. I am sorry, David. Closed his eyes. He thought of his niece Maya, who dreamed of flying among the stars. He thought of Admiral fighting against impossible odds above the planet. He thought of every species that had trusted humanity to save them. Then he had an idea. He said, you are right about one thing. Someone is going to die here today, but it does not have to be billions of innocents. He lowered his weapon and walked toward her. What are you doing? Demanded. Offering you a different choice. You can activate the silence protocol and kill billions. Your name will be remembered forever as history's greatest monster. Every species in the galaxy will unite to destroy your people. They will become the most hated race in existence. He stopped directly in front of her. Or you can cancel the protocol. You can be the one who chose mercy. The conquered will fall either way. But you can decide what replaces it. A galaxy united by hatred of your people, or a galaxy that remembers you chose differently when it mattered most. His hands trembled over the controls. The countdown continued. 20 minutes, billions of lives hanging on her decision. I have served the conquered for 200 years, she whispered. It was my life, my purpose. Purposes can change, said gently. People can change, that is what freedom means. The chamber was silent, except for the soft hum of ancient machines. Then pressed her hand to the control panel. Cancellation authorized, the computer announced. Silence protocol deactivated. Above Prime, the battle suddenly stopped. The news spread instantly. The silence protocol was dead. The threat was over. One by one, conquered ships lowered their weapons. Some surrendered, others fled into deep space, but the fighting was finished. Admiral watched from her damaged bridge as peace fell over the battlefield. Tears streamed down her face. They had done it. Against all odds, they had won. 6 years later, the Free Assembly met for its first full session. Representatives from over 100 species gathered in a great hall on neutral ground. There was no council of elders, no master species. Every voice counted equally. Now retired from military service, addressed the assembly as humanity's ambassador. We were told the galaxy runs on chains, she said. That someone must always be the master. That freedom was a dream for children and fools. We proved them wrong. She looked at the gathered representatives, former slaves and former masters, species that had fought each other for centuries, now sitting together in peace. We are not here to rule. Humanity claims no empire, no special authority. We are here to build something new. A galaxy where every species chooses its own path, where disagreements are settled with words, not weapons, where no one is born into chains. She paused. This is the legacy humanity offers. Not monuments to our power, but proof that freedom is possible, that chains can always be broken. The assembly rose to their feet. The applause echoed across the stars. And somewhere in the crowd, Maya watched with shining eyes. She was 23 years old now, a pilot like her uncle. She had flown in the liberation wars. She had seen friends die for freedom. Now she was seeing that freedom born. The galaxy began to heal. It would take generations. Old wounds ran deep, but the chains were gone, and in the spaces where empires once stood, something new was growing. Hope. Humanity took its place among the stars, not as conquerors or rulers, but as proof of a simple truth, one that tyrants throughout history had tried to bury. The human spirit cannot be chained. And freedom, once lit, spreads like fire through the darkness.